the topic of which, as we've been discussing, blockchain business through various segments. We're now going to be highlighting some of the challenges that are involved and some of the ways that we are overcoming these obstacles. This is going to be moderated by Ahmed Rifai, if you'd like to join us. And Jorge, Derek, and Guy Turner, if you'd like to join.
Do they have mics for
These gentlemen.
So until all is seated, I just want to say that I'm very happy to be here. Thanks to Gustavo and to Bilal from Carter Capital for deciding to invite us here and collaborate with us on pulling off this amazing and well-curated event. One of the very little that we really was confident to entertain our name with. So thank you, Gustavo, very good and old friend. We have been in the industry for almost half a decade now. We have been seeing a lot of events. You know his face very well. Maybe I'm more than the guy behind the scene, but I'm happy today to moderate this panel with such an amazing panelists and very dear friends of mine like Derek and Georgie. And I had the pleasure to meet one of the most influential YouTubers on blockchain. So welcome you guys and welcome our dear panelists as well. Yes. Thank you. So let's get started this straight away. I would like each one of you to take just at least 1 minute, if not less, to briefly and concisely introduce yourselves. So we start with you.
Hello, my name is Guy Turner. A few years ago, I co-founded the Coin Bureau YouTube channel, and as of today, we are the largest crypto, blockchain, and Web3 focused YouTube channel in the world. And yeah, it's my very great pleasure to be the front man for an extremely talented team of researchers and in crypto enthusiasts, and we make dozens and dozens of videos every month, and it's our mission to spread education, adoption, and knowledge of crypto, blockchain, and Web3, one person, one video at a time.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is George Sebastião. I've been in the region for 27 years, about 35 in technology. I was CTO for Huawei for about 20 countries, and about 7-8 years ago, Huawei asked me, oh, there's this thing called blockchain. It consumes lots of computing power. Why don't you go and study it? Well, the rest is kind of a little bit history, but the short version is that I've worked in blockchain now for the last 7 years, and we have created the largest community in the Middle East in 11 other countries. It's something called EcoX, stands for Ecosystem Connections. And during this, we bring the 3 most important ingredients for startups to be successful. And we call this, like the TV station in Saudi called NBC, we call it money, brains, and contacts. So if you want to have a successful business, you need these 3 ingredients to be successful in business. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Derek Hoekenkamp. I'm from the Dutch Caribbean originally, here around I think 15 years in UAE, and now I'm living between Thailand and UAE and hopefully Switzerland soon, because I'm looking at some project there which is confidential. My main mission is to enjoy life, and second of all, let other people enjoy life and use technologies to make your life better and maintain cultural heritage and also heritage of buildings and of assets. So you can see that, for example, in Thailand or in Dubai, which is really important, and also the kids, to make it interesting for the kids, like us old people want to teach them something, and through the technology we can make these kids interested. As I gave the example before, I don't want to go with grandma to the temple or to the mosque, but if it's gamified or if there's a metaverse, or if there's a blockchain, or if there's technology, then I want to go with REMA.
Thank you.
So, to stay relevant to the topic about the challenges of blockchain business, and as I can see, and I know some of you personally, and now I have a background of the diversity on this panel now. So, you come from the media side, you run this YouTube channel, you're a former CTO of a blue chip, and you're more of a technical guy as well as the ecosystem guy. And for Derek, you come from the real estate background and trophy assets and this kind of stuff. So let me give relevant questions to each of you in your respective fields. Starting with Derek, the other side we go back to. So what do you see in terms of the blockchain business in real estate? What are the challenges? What are the problems? What is the reality and what is the myth?
Yeah, that's the question I get a lot. The thing is that with the real estate, it's regulation. That's number one. Because but if you talk about regulation and about automation and digitalization of assets, and real estate is one of the most complex ones, you need to work together with authorities. That's number one. Number two, blockchain or metaverse or NFT or whatever you want to use, any innovation, even biometrics or any other technologies, can be useful a lot. And this has been proven over time. But you have to use it wisely. And also now everybody is saying, oh, I'm gonna fractionalize the real estate, or I can pay with the digital currencies. I mean, you could always pay with digital currencies, nothing new. And the thing is that I'm using metaverse so to have more sales. But again, coming back to the same point, you have to look at the utility and what is your goal. Because I think a lot of companies, they have a big plan and then they do so many things. You should pick out one and focus on that, right? And that is with real estate also. Because you have so many things in real estate. It's not only buying the product or developing the product or the construction, because the construction can also put on the blockchain. And also what you're gonna do with it, right? So what are you focusing on? And that is a big problem because people who start a new company or this space, they wanna do everything. And that's not gonna work. So choose your battles and choose what you want to do.
Yeah, thank you very much for such an answer. So let me take it to you, Georgie, but from a different angle. As a technical guy, coming from the technical and the ecosystem environment, what do you see as the tackling point for the intersection between technology and business?
Actually, there's many challenges that came when blockchain was introduced. First, it is a new technology. Second is not very mature. So every time you introduce a new technology, maturity is not there, meaning it's not stable, it cannot do enough transactions per second, which is an example of performance. Some blockchains are not so stable, so they crash. So in terms of transactions per second, just to give you an idea, when you go to something like Visa or MasterCard and it's Christmas Day or the special days, we expect to do 20,000 transactions per second. The initial blockchains like Bitcoin or Ethereum can do anywhere from 3 to 20 transactions per second. So it's a bit like a toy trying to grow up and being used in the real world. So you need to get the technology to mature and advance. The second biggest challenge was the availability of qualified resources. So we did not have the people with the necessary skills to understand what we call programming, smart contracts, and many others. The third element was the integration in the ecosystem. So today when somebody comes to me and tells me, oh, I'm building a blockchain solution, what are you actually really building? And if you actually study it, you realize that blockchain is maybe 2 or 3 or even 5% of the entire solution. The rest has nothing to do with blockchain. It's what we call in the business full stack development, front end, back end, mobile application, and so on. So in order for you to build successful solutions, you need to have something that addresses not just the blockchain element, but everything else, including the most important we always forget, which is the user experience. The last point I want to make is don't focus just on technology, focus first on the business. And this I'm gonna give you a good example of blockchain that has nothing to do with crypto, nothing to, me and a few colleagues here in Dubai helped the largest telecom organization in the world to deal with their suppliers. Some of those suppliers were, for example, Huawei, but also Lenovo and many others. So the average telecom operator deals with 100 to 1,000 suppliers, batteries, servers, storage, etc. The largest telecom operator is running 50 telecom operations, so it has tens of thousands of contracts, supplies. All these contracts today are being done manually by paper, so they get negotiated, and then you have paper going back and forward every time you have an adjustment to the contract or we deliver less than what it was. So this is the long story. The short story is by implementing a simple technology called blockchain and smart contracts to digitize or remove the paper from these contracts between them and their suppliers, this organization is saving $450 million a year. That's how you introduce business. You save money to the business. You make a change. So for blockchain to be realistically addressing all the challenges, it needs to be useful for business. Only when it's useful for business will people start to use it.
Thank you, George. That was very insightful. So let's take it to the media side as well. You come across probably a lot of people. How do you see different players or new emergent people who are trying to tap into the blockchain sphere and market themselves? What do you experience when you interview people? What are they trying to pin as points to their audience, and what message they are trying to deliver, and what challenges are they trying to solve?
I think in terms of challenges that blockchain is looking to solve, or challenges I guess that blockchain is looking to address, is in terms, and a large amount of what Georgie was talking about, scalability. This idea that at the moment these legacy networks, the likes of Visa, can offer services that are beyond the scope of blockchain at the moment. And I think part of the danger is that blockchain has been a buzzword in recent years, a buzzword for a shorthand for a new technology that supposedly is going to solve all these problems, is going to make everything more secure, everything easier and faster. And I think what we in our research, and when we talk to people in the industry, and when we talk to people from outside the industry looking in, one of the things that really strikes us is the fact that people are still are quite cynical now. They've heard the word blockchain a great many times.
But everybody thinks it's Bitcoin. When you talk to anyone and say blockchain, if they are not from the sphere, they are not acquainted with the technology, you say blockchain, you say, yeah, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah. Number go up. How much is it worth now? And I think obviously the crypto element of it gets all the headlines. The price is going up gets all the headlines, and that obscures the underlying use of the technology. And I think that creates an image problem. And I think this is one of the big problems that we see with blockchain is it's almost promised too much over the past few years, and then the narrative has got shifted by talk around prices, by talk around projects that really are meaningless, because there are so many, especially crypto projects built on blockchains that offer no value, that bring
So
nothing.
you see the challenge now is that people need to understand more and get educated more about the blockchain use case.
Exactly.
It's just that cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin is just one tiny fraction of the deployment of the technology. Blockchain, as Gustavo said in the intro of this event, it's a database. And I always say like the blockchain is just a fancy word to describe a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
You know, like,
Yeah.
but it's how you deploy it and how you use it. So this is the challenge that you see in the industry or in the ecosystem of being getting to know about it. How do you see we can address this challenge of informative educational awareness among the community?
I think it's about demonstrating use case. It's about moving beyond this idea of a blockchain is merely a way to transmit monetary value. It's really about, I think, nurturing businesses that are using blockchains in innovative ways. Because I think one of the things people often ask me is, what do you think is going to be the use case that takes blockchain to the stratosphere? And my answer always is, I have no idea, because if I knew, I'd be out there trying to build it. So I think, and that's the thing that excites me most about the sector, is that we're still in this very early stage where the killer applications for blockchain, the killer use cases, I think have yet to be discovered. Having said that, there's still some really exciting use cases, some really exciting options being explored, like these guys have just been talking about. So yeah, I think we're still waiting for that spark.
Thank you so much. So I pass it to you now, George. What do you see as a challenge in the intersection of technology and business? How can you see such a challenge that you would describe to be solved?
I think there's several elements that are important. I think today the most important element to address is definitely education. People, as was mentioned by my colleague here, have this idea that blockchain solves all the problems. No, blockchain solves a very specific problem, which in this case is the capability to do transactions, not necessarily financial ones, between individuals or organizations without middlemen. But blockchain has done actually much more than that. And I think one has to step back. Remember when the Lehman Brothers happened and there was a major collapse? Nobody really knew what happened in that collapse because everything was hidden behind walls of data centers. When FTX collapse happened, guess what? It happened in view of everybody. Everybody knew what amount was taken, who took that amount, and what it was used for. So blockchain is adding a layer of visibility. Although it's a hidden database, you can say it's pseudo-anonymous. But the largest company today being successful in blockchain, probably you heard about it or not, but I'll give you a few letters. It's called Chainalysis. Maybe you have heard about it or not. Guess who's the biggest hire of Chainalysis today? The US government. And why they're interested in that? Because they want to collect taxes. And guess what? The US government can now collect taxes automatically better than they were able to do before. Because now if you do transactions on this ledger, we can find you out. Maybe it'll take a week, maybe it'll take a month, but the data is all there and the data just needs to be crunched by the right computer at the right time. And then the rest is magic. So the technology and the magic of blockchain is actually amazing in the sense that it allows us to do things that before were simply done in a completely different way. Does it solve all the problems? No. But the biggest problem I think we need to address is the issue of the user interface. And I don't know how to mention this, but we need to make it simple and easy to use so that the guy that is serving us coffee outside the door can use blockchain without figuring out how to configure MetaMask or some other complicated set of procedures. Because today it's simply too technical and it's not inviting for the average user to use. Once we solve that problem, then the technology of blockchain will take off exponentially.
Thank you, Jordan, for your insights. Now I take it to you, Derek, from a different angle. You come from the real estate side. You have been a developer, one of the largest projects here in Dubai I know of for you with the government and stuff. So you have your deep-rooted even heritage of your family in the banking in Europe as well. So when it comes to real estate and banking, these two sectors are very prominent in the use cases of blockchain. What do you see as the obstacle or the hassle for investors and for companies or corporates or developers or financial institutions to tap into the blockchain, whether to adopt it or to invest in it?
I wanted to come back to that question in a few seconds. First, I wanted to reply is that, I mean, guys, history repeats itself. I had an internet company, and it was exactly the same where we are now. I had an Audiotex company. It's exactly the same where they're in now. Super high, right? Then also it was exactly the same problems. There were a lot of promises. And first, there was in the internet, remember, a really bad industry which was dominating the internet. We all know which one it is, which I cannot say. The second one is like this saying what happens with crypto or with digital currencies and with what we're talking about now. It's like dominated always by negativity. Why? Because the governments and everybody is afraid of the technology. Because we always talk here about decentralization, but what is wanted? There is regulation needed. There's a kind of centralization needed. So this is why that it's very complicated, and it's not a simple issue. It's a repeat of history. Happened in the telecom industry, which you know also, happened in the internet industry, and now it's happening in the digital currency blockchain industry. Yeah. So it's the same for the real estate. How can a real estate industry, which is one of the most conservative, banking and real estate are the most conservative two of them, right?
You come from both.
Yeah, I come from both, and I'm the least conservative. So, I mean, I was born in the Dutch Caribbean. We all know what the Dutch Caribbean was founded for. It was the first holding structure in the world, right? And was to avoid taxes, not to evade, avoid. It's a big difference, right? In a completely legal way, right? And all these things you can put also on a blockchain, or you can also use digital currencies or whatever. But it all comes back to the same thing. It's a repeat of history. We will soon not talk about blockchain anymore. We will soon not talk about digital currencies anymore. It's just gonna be there, right? And it's gonna happen quicker than we think, right? And it's all a question what Sebastian said, right? It's all about that it's easy to use, man. I'm in crypto for a long, I don't know how long now, but a lot, right? I mean, and in blockchain and in technology, I mean, I still need help with my wallets and with this really good friend, because otherwise he runs away with the ledger or whatever. Right? So this I still need help, and I'm sitting here on stage. So he's completely right? I mean, I use, for example, an exchange and not a ledger for certain reason, right? Or I use the ledger, of course, when it's big amount, but for a certain reason, because I'm first of all too lazy to put it on the ledger and go through this process and call my friend. Second of all, I just think, okay, same as a bank. I mean, if you give the money to the bank, it's the bank's money, it's not your money. If you give it to exchanges, their money, it's not your money, right? It's all the same stuff. But it has to be adopted, it has to be accepted, and that's it, nothing else. There's nothing new going on here, guys, nothing. That was my analysis.
Thank you, Derek, for such an analysis. So that takes me to you, George, now, back again. Yeah, see how he reacts. I think he knows what I'm going to ask. But, so, let's take it from a different angle. So, someone like you who has been connecting the space and the ecosystem here for years, one of the first, if not the first, to bring everybody together. We almost met everybody through you, and everybody met anybody who's anybody in the industry through you here in the region. And I have to give you credit for that, and I think everybody should. What do you think the problem in the ecosystem is? It needs to be more filtered in terms of the participant, or should it be just open for everybody and his dog, or what do you see?
That's actually a good question. My approach to building ecosystem has always been what I call open book approach or open source. And actually the entire evolution of the blockchain industry and the software industry has changed dramatically because of the approach to open source. And what I mean by open source, it really means it's an inclusive way to develop. If somebody tomorrow asks me, do I want to develop my own blockchain? Actually, you can. The source code for the other ones is available. You can copy it, change a few lines, and you have your own blockchain. Imagine trying to do that with Microsoft Word. There's no source code, so you don't know what's actually going on. But somebody made something called OpenOffice or LibreOffice. You have the source code. You can create your own version of Office. So what that really means, the way we actually develop software today is a collaborative way. And when I say software, it's everything in the industry has changed. My background is also around cybersecurity. Before, the way you tested cybersecurity was you did, when I came to the region, I did my first course in 1999. We did what we call penetration tests. So we go to a bank and say, your systems are not safe, give me $100,000, and I give you a report of what's wrong with it. This is the old way of doing things. You know what's the new way of doing things? It's something called bug bounty. How many people here have heard about bug bounty? Bug bounty is actually an open way, crowdsourced way of finding the problems. You find the problem, you go tell that user, there's companies that will make you a millionaire because you found the problem. That means everybody is responsible to find the problem, and the ones that find it first get paid first. It's a completely upside down way of solving the problems in the industry. It's a collaborative way. It really means you can solve more problems than the way you were able
to do it before. And this change actually happened in the industry almost, I would say, 30 years ago. And I'll explain how this change happened. When I got into the industry, I used to work a lot through CA with a company called IBM. IBM is institutional in our business. By the way, we always joke a bit about IBM as the founder, you know, for those that know about the Middle East technology, say IBM stands for Inshallah Bukra Malash, which means God willing, tomorrow, don't worry. So IBM was always the secure way to do computing because it worked, but they had 20 manuals and it took them 10 years to release the next version. Then Microsoft came around and said, no, this is the wrong way to do that. We do something is almost ready, we ship it and the user tests for us, and they tell us what's wrong and we fix it on the next version. And guess what? That's the way IT has been evolving for the last 20 plus years. So we turned IT upside down. So everybody today is actually responsible to make IT better. And the same applies to actually blockchain. So if you have a collaborative approach to make your business better and more evolved, it evolves much faster than if you try to do it yourself, because everybody becomes part of your own team, and yet you're rewarded based on the value that they give to you. They found the bug, you pay them. And guess what? People today, there's a company now moved to Lisbon I'm not trying to promote that company. Last year, their revenues were about $9–10 million. This year, their revenue is close to $100 million just finding bugs in blockchain systems. That is the new way of doing so. In relationship, to answer your question, the solution is collaborative way to do blockchain. The more open way you have, the more and the faster the blockchain will evolve as a maturity or as a mature solution to solve business problems.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. That was very probable and very linked to the point as well. So I think everybody has benefited from this, me personally as well. And let's take this to the last and the final stage of the panel and wrap it up from the media perspective. We have all seen the collapses of the likes of FTX, Celsius, 3 Iris Capital, and recently one of the VCs were coming to us, and I found 3 Iris Capital, which actually I call it 3 hours because it went down in 3 hours, and the balance sheet is almost bankrupt. So I was like, seriously, you don't come up to us with this. But a lot of people have been talking about this and analyzing this, and what happened at FTX, and what didn't happen at FTX, and a lot of things. Nobody has been there, nobody knows. But of course, there has been a criminal act there, a fraudulent practice. How do you see the ecosystem or the participants, the communities are reacting to this? Who's trying to compromise on it, and who's trying to take it as an advantage, and who's trying to step over the ruins of FTX to show that they are the best?
I think first and foremost, the industry's reaction to FTX and Celsius and 3AC, and let's face it, many others as well, has been, fortunately, to look back on itself and look back at its founding principles, the founding principles of blockchain, which are decentralization, trustlessness. And the problem is that we allowed entities like FTX and Celsius, these centralized entities, these entities really that are no different from many traditional finance institutions, to impose themselves on the industry. And going back to what you were saying about ease of use, about how the user experience can't be, you're absolutely right, you can't be having to connect your MetaMask. No one wants to be writing down seed phrases. And what FTX and Celsius and many others did was to make it easy. They played the convenience card. And this is unfortunately how humans are. If you make it easy for people, then that's the route they'll take. People take the path of least resistance. So I think what was the important thing to take out of that whole disaster, that disaster, which, let's face it, we're still finding out the consequences of it now. We're still uncovering what exactly was going on there. But the principle remains the same. The founding ethics of blockchain have been forgotten. We had this, and we allowed ourselves to be seduced by ease of use. So where do we go from that? Where does the industry take itself from that? I mean, we are seeing we are seeing people question these sorts of companies now. What worries me is that we will cycle back, because someone else will come along and go, yep, we're decentralized, yep, everything's on chain, yep, we'll make it easy for you, and oh, by the way, 20%, 15%, offering snake oil salesmen will come back again. So the blockchain industry itself needs to be hyper vigilant, and this is where this is my job. This is me and my team's job, is to keep preaching the gospel of decentralization, to keep pointing out that what is so amazing about blockchain is that you put the code out there and anyone can see it. It's the market decides in a way, and we have to stay true to that. We have to stay true to this transparency of blockchain. That throws up factors that not everyone is comfortable with. Not everyone is comfortable with everything being on chain, with everything being discoverable. And obviously, we're seeing a lot of growth in private blockchains. We're seeing TradFi kind of embrace that aspect of it. And unfortunately, for them, I think this is not the way to go. If we want blockchain to live up to its potential, if we want it to give it if we want to take what it can give us, then we have to embrace that idea of open source. We have to embrace that idea of visibility and trustlessness.
Thank you so much for such a broad explanation of the issue. And so we conclude from this panel that history repeats itself, so it's just a reaction, and the market crashes and ups and downs and the highs and the buzz will always be the same, because this is the way we humans as animals are designed. So it's our nature. We're not gonna bypass that. And from the technical perspective and business intersection, just focus on what value are you adding? What kind of saving resources, bringing revenue, or making something more efficient, easier, more frictionless and hassle-free. And in terms of the ecosystem and the audience and the participants, to be more informated and educated about the topics itself. And even if something is open source and everybody can see it, people just say, okay, it's open source, somebody might be watching them, I don't have to watch them. So we end up nobody watching them, and even if they are open source, they're gonna like full of souls. So let's all pay attention to that. Thank you, every one of you, and thank you for your time and interest in listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much to a very experienced and esteemed panel from a variety of backgrounds, as you've just heard. We're going to continue through the summit agenda now, moving on to a presentation.